Ladies and gentlemen, the academic procession is about to enter the hall. We will be singing the national anthem. The words are on page 9 of the programme. Please be upstanding for the academic procession and remain standing for the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains and let us sing, advance Australia fair.
I, Catherine Branson, Chancellor of the University of Adelaide, declare open this congregation convened for the purpose of presenting degrees. Distinguished guests, parents, relatives, friends, and most importantly, the graduates. Welcome to the University of Adelaide's graduation ceremony. We acknowledge the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the Adelaide Plains and thus of the land on which the University of Adelaide's campuses are built. We acknowledge their ongoing spiritual connection to this place, and we pay respects to their elders past and present. This graduation is a small sign that life is returning to normal here, now that COVID-19 plays only a limited threat to those of us in South Australia. We're delighted to welcome those of you who are physically with us to our beautiful campus, and we have a especially warm welcome to those of you who are joining us online. I'd like to take just a moment to acknowledge our health and medical alumni for their contributions during this pandemic. It's the first time that we have faced a pandemic of this proportion, and the efforts of our medical graduates and our nursing graduates on the front line have been of crucial importance in the battle against the virus, both here in Australia and around the world. We express our gratitude to them and their colleagues. It's important also to acknowledge that under the shadow of COVID-19, important milestones have been reached this year. This year, the Adelaide Medical School is celebrating its 135th year. The Adelaide Nursing School is celebrating its 25th year, as is the Malaysian Alumni Network, to which so many of our health and medical graduates belong. Graduates, your graduation is an event in which you and your family and friends can take great pride. It's certainly a source of pride and satisfaction to the University of Adelaide. Graduation Day is an opportunity for you to reflect, both on your past that brought you here and on the future that lies ahead of you. Graduation Day, generally, is a time of transition. Whatever direction your life now takes, the knowledge that you've acquired, the skills that you've acquired also at this university should stand you in good stead, not just in your working and professional life, but in the whole of your life. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today's graduation orator, Ms. Leslie Dwyer. Leslie Dwyer was appointed to the challenging position of Chief Executive Officer of the Central Adelaide Local Health Network in November 2018. This network includes the flagship Royal Adelaide Hospital, our 800-bed major referral and trauma centre for South Australia. Leslie is an experienced executive manager with more than 30 years' experience across the public health system. She's held senior executive roles in government and health services within Australia and the United Kingdom, where she was named as one of the top 50 chief executive officers across England. Leslie has worked in leadership roles at times of significant health reform, ensuring the effectiveness and quality of services delivered. Her clinical background is in nursing, and she has tertiary qualifications in health management. Leslie is a member of the University of Adelaide's Health and Biotech Advisory Board, and we're very grateful to her for her support in this role. We're privileged to hear her speak today. Please join with me in welcoming Ms. Leslie Dwyer.
I'd also like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Kaurna people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and importantly, emerging. So to the Chancellor of the University of Adelaide, the Honourable Catherine Branson, the Acting Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Academic Professor Jenny Shaw, distinguished guests, staff, faculty, friends, family, but especially to those of you graduating today. It is a great honour to be here, and I really do thank you for having me. So as you heard, my name's Leslie Dwyer, and I am the Chief Executive of something that is known as Central Adelaide, or otherwise Carlin. And like some of you graduating today, I did start my career as a nurse, and I've been extremely grateful that I've been able to maintain that connection to purpose all the way through what is now probably more of an administrative career. But what I do want to say to you is, and you heard about the length of my career, I envy you the beginning that you now have with everything that has actually prepared you for your new roles by being a graduate of the University of Adelaide. I was hospital trained, and any tertiary qualifications that I then went back and did, I did while I was working, and probably bringing up children as well. So I always envy you. And I ask that you never forget that you have actually been set up to be inquiring, to be curious, to challenge, and please don't ever lose that. So for all of us, 2020 has been described in many ways as a tough year, an extraordinary year, an unprecedented year, and it has been all of those things, but it has been tough, and it hasn't been the year that I think you could have imagined that you'd be finishing your studies. The year has been even more challenging than any of us could have imagined. But what a tremendous achievement, and probably a relief to be here graduating today. You should be also proud of yourselves. But given that we are in the times that we are, we could perhaps use a little bit of inspiration, kindness, and perspective. And that's what I wish to talk to you about. So as you leave what could be called a safety bubble of the university and off into the world to start your careers, I do want to give you a little perspective, and perhaps starting with a tiny bit of audience participation. So graduates, with a show of hands, can you tell me how many of you have lived out of home? It's very good. How many of you have parents who still pay for things? And I'll say, how many parents still pay for things? I do too. How many of you have had to work during your studies? Good on you. And how many of you want to work in a place with purpose and have a real impact? Terrific. But who is willing to do the hard work to get there? Now, you will all have a different definition of what hard work means because you've all travelled different journeys to get to where you are. And some of you may have had to overcome huge barriers along the way. And for some, you may have actually been extremely fortunate to have such a secure and supportive network around you to enable you to be the person that you're about to become. So I want to tell you a story of two people, and just for a bit of gender balance, we've called them Christopher and Amy. So Christopher was one of those lucky people. He was born into a loving home. His parents had good jobs. His house was warm. He had clean clothes, all of the things that you would actually want to have in your life. Amy's start was a little different, in a somewhat chaotic household where at times there wasn't enough money to do all of the things that she would want to do and what her parents would like to support her with. Because Christopher's parents had the means to do anything for him. He went to good schools, he was able to do sport, he was able to play music if he wanted to do, and he had also the high expectations of his parents. So if he got a B on his assignment or on the end of his year tests, his parents could consider about did he need some extra tutoring. However, that wasn't the case for Amy. Her parents worked really long hours to give her the start that they wanted her to. And at her school, her class sizes were large, at times the students were disruptive, and the resources were stretched really thinly. Her teachers were a bit tired and stressed. She wanted to have some of the privilege that Christopher had, but unfortunately her parents couldn't afford it. So over the years, you might say, well, lots of people have that beginning, but the differences start to build up. Christopher knew he was always going to go to university, and that possibly his parents might contribute to the cost of that so that he didn't graduate with debt to then pay down. Amy is going to be the first in her family to go to university, and she's going to be working all of her way through to pay for living expenses. At the end of that, the differences start to show that Chris's dad has a friend who can get him his next job or an opportunity to do an internship, whereas Amy has to continue to keep working and actually hopes that she will be able to get good enough marks to get the job that she wants at the end of it. And as I said, these little differences start to all add up into what may end up being people's lives. So as I said, Chris gets the job he wants with Dad's friend, and he does well, and he slowly works his way up. Amy does get her the job that she wants, but it's more than an hour from home, and she spends quite a lot of time travelling. But she also does well and picks up the job really quickly. People are impressed with her, and so that continues. So at this point the education that they've had and the subtle differences in their upbringings, they can either make a big difference, or in fact what they can do is actually create something that brings people closer together. So Chris always believed that he would get there because that's what he was told every day. Amy believed she could get there by hard work, but understood that she'd have a few knocks along the way. But in fact, she didn't give up. So whether you can relate to Chris or to Amy, the point is that as you step out of here, you need to understand that the person next to you may not have had your journey, and you haven't had theirs. We're all made up of the experiences that we've had and the people that we come in contact with. Everyone who has ever done something that comes from a place of kindness or encouraged us forms part of our make-up character, thoughts and success. However, we all know that the same happens in reverse, and that every knock that we get actually should not take us away from the journey we're about to have, but give us stronger resolve to get there. In healthcare, our backgrounds can contribute so much to the experience the person before us has, and certainly to better healthcare. We can empathise and understand our patients better, and it really does show, I think, that core of humanity. But it also demonstrates that we are putting our patients first, which is one of our values at Central Adelaide. So going back to the questions I asked, perhaps, sort of if your parents and your family and friends have actually allowed you to be sitting here today, it might be a great opportunity, as they're saying congratulations and how proud they are of you, to turn to them and to say thank you, because everybody else lifts us to be the person that we will be. If your path has had some bumps along the road, please stay strong and don't give up, because in fact you will get there through perseverance, working hard over a long period, but looking to others, people like the faculty, people like myself. We are here now to make sure that you can be the very best that you want to be. We have a little bit of a mantra across our network, and every Friday I write to our 15,000 employees a little bit about what is good in the organisation, but also at times perhaps where we could have done better. And I always finish it with something that is not originally mine. It is from that wonderful American civil rights activist, John Lewis, which is, if not us, then who? And the reason that I do that is when I first started at Central Adelaide, I was asked, well, this sounds a bit tough, long way to go. Who's going to do this for us? And I looked and I said, we are. There is no one else that can actually allow you to be the best person you can be. We can help and support you, but it's got to come from within. And so in writing If Not Us, Then Who, it's about really when you see something that needs to change, it means that you will go into action and do something about it. The education that you have received gives you all of the tools, and now it's up to you to use them. And whatever you pursue, please go with gratitude, empathy, kindness and understanding that your journey may be vastly different from those that you will now call colleagues and those that you will provide your expert knowledge, skills and care to. As graduates of the wonderful University of Adelaide, you have had the most wondrous and privileged start to your careers. And so, in ending, I'm not going to say, if not you, then who? But rather, it is you, and it is now. So thank you, and I'm just so privileged myself to now be watching you start your brilliant careers. Thank you.
On behalf of the graduates and their families attending today's event, I would like to thank Ms. Leslie Dwyer for her stimulating and inspiring address. We are honoured that you have taken the time out to join us on this special day to share your thoughts and experiences with us. Your words of encouragement and advice are greatly appreciated. They remind us that education places upon each of us an enduring responsibility to make the best possibilities of our talents and to contribute to the betterment of society in whatever way we can. Please join me once again in thanking Ms. Leslie Dwyer.
I will now receive the candidates for degrees. I call on the Interim Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Vice President Academic.
Chancellor, I, Professor Jenny Shaw, Interim Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Vice President Academic of the University of Adelaide, certify to you and to the whole university that the graduates who will be presented to you have all fulfilled the conditions prescribed for admission to the award for which they are so presented.
I, Catherine Branson, Chancellor of the University of Adelaide, by virtue of the power committed to me by the university, confirm that each graduate is admitted to the rank and privileges of a holder of the award in the University of Adelaide, for which they are so presented. I call on the Interim Dean of the Adelaide Medical School, Professor Cherry Gallaty, to present the graduates.
Chancellor, I, Interim Dean of the Adelaide Medical School, Professor Cherry Gallaty, present to you graduates from the School of Public Health. Graduates, we ask that they please stand at your seats when your name is announced. Please hold your applause until the end of each degree. To the Graduate Certificate in Public Health, Albert Joseph Camilleri. Joanne Marie Flavel. Richard Elaine Concepcion Rivera. To the Graduate Certificate in Health Economics, Kelly Lambert. To the Graduate Certificate in Counselling and Psychotherapy, Melissa Ann English. To the Graduate Certificate in Biostatistics, Dominic John Henschke. Savannah Zekanovic and Joshua Peter Sobel. To the Graduate Certificate in Alcohol and Drug Studies, Kayam Hood. To the Graduate Diploma in Public Health, Paul Lawrence Kaiser, Baimala Lama, and Robin Allison Stevenson. To the Graduate Diploma in Counselling and Psychotherapy, and also receiving the Graduate Certificate in Counselling and Psychotherapy, Jessica D'Annunzio. And the Graduate Diploma in Counselling and Psychotherapy, Esmitha Maria Devanand, Stephen Faiello, Gillian Ruth Henshaw, Devon Milton Hutchinson. Janet O'Sullivan, Shannon Caroline O'Toole. To the Graduate Diploma in Biostatistics, Adam Badenoch. To the degree of Master in Public Health, Afusa Ansoma Addo, Sanya Ajiz, Benson Mung Shung Pek, Shalan Kumasame, Vathan Kolithia, Laisha Krishnamurthy, Sajel Maima Maripo, Krishna Kiritabai Patel, Trisha Jane Rogers, Dithri Sanuth Shukla, Mohammed Tajuddin, and Tarsan Tarifta. To the degree of Master of Health Economics and Policy, Thresia Maria Wonga. To the degree of Master of Biostatistics, Benjamin Glasson, Gabriella Lincoln. To the degree of Master of Counselling and Psychotherapy, Jennifer Joy Burgess, Kerry-Ann Campbell, Luke Joseph Ganeo, Afa Habibi, Kelly Coral Han, Naomi Caitlin Henderson, Jamie Lorraine Humphreys, Jinju M, Brioni Eileen James, Nina Elena Jade Lim, Nikki Lucas, and also receiving the Graduate Diploma in Counselling and Psychotherapy, Kate Maitland. So returning to the Master of Counselling and Psychotherapy, Ashana Narang, Marika Edith Oliphant, Punitha Rajendra, Amy Jean Roberts, and Adelina Sanders. Right. To the degree of Master of Clinical Science for a thesis entitled Adult Patients' Experiences of Using Electronic Personal Health Records for Self-Management of Chronic Non-Communicable Disease, a Qualitative Systematic Review, Julia Sarah Eastway. For a thesis entitled Experiences of Parents and Carers Managing Asthma in Children, Robin Jane Fawcett. For a thesis entitled The Outcome of Ocular Prosthetic Artificial Eye Reconstruction, Peter Timothy Knowles. For a thesis entitled The Effectiveness and Harms of Pharmacological Interventions for the Treatment of Delirium in Adults Admitted into the Intensive Care Unit after Cardiac Surgery, a Systematic Review, Vivian Margaret Lee. For a thesis entitled The Effectiveness of Probiotics in the Management of Inflammatory Arthritis, Judith Rosemary Lowe. For a thesis entitled Experiences of Adult Patients in Discharge and Recovery from Day Surgery, a Qualitative Systematic Review, Irene Mayo. For a thesis entitled Management of Full Thickness Rotator Cuff Tears in the Elderly, a Systematic Review by Michael Nornor. For a thesis entitled Effectiveness of Endoscopic versus External Surgical Approaches in the Treatment of Orbital Complications of Rhinosinusitis, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis, Vimal Shaker. For a thesis entitled Accuracy of Core Needle Biopsy Compared to Fine Needle Biopsy in the Diagnosis of Malignancy in Patients with Suspected Head and Neck Cancers, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis of Diagnostic Test Accuracy and Comparison of Adverse Effects, Saumoya. For a thesis entitled Optimisation of Radiographic Technique Factors for Direct Digital Radiography, a Systematic Review, Caitlin Jane Stephenson. To the degree of Master of Philosophy, Public Health, for a thesis entitled Exploration of Computerised Automatic Processing Tasks and Their Use in Digital Psychological Health Interventions in Real-World Settings Among Adults, Harshani Pradeepa Kumari Jayasinghe Pedagay. To the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, for a thesis entitled All in a Day's Work, a qualitative analysis of fathers' uptake of flexible working arrangements, workplace culture and masculine identity, Dr. Ashley Ray Borgvist. For a thesis entitled Marketing and Consumer Perceptions of Sugar-Containing Beverages Positioned as Healthy or as Having Health-Related Benefits, Dr. Amy Lee Brownbill. For a thesis entitled The Neurological Impact of Specific Nutrients on Female Stress, a two-phase sequential mixed method study, Dr. Delia McCabe. For a thesis entitled Feasibility of a Reimbursement Pathway for Mobile Medical Applications in Australia, Dr. Magdalena Ruth Moshi. For a thesis entitled The Social and Ethical Significance of Non-Problematized Middle-Aged Drinkers, Dr. Emma Louise Mulak. And for a thesis entitled Understanding the Heat Work Injury Phenomenon in Australia and Evaluation of Risk, Susceptibility and Attributable Burden, Dr. Blesson Matthew Varghese. Thank you. Chancellor, this concludes the presentation of graduates from the School of Public Health. I now present to you graduates from the Adelaide Medical School. To the degrees of Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, Ranindu Nimesha Abayaguna Wadena, Erica Wee-Teng Ang, Nokez Azif, Vinay Athreya, Manor Baig, Megan Isabel Barnett, Gemma Elaine Barrow, Emily Rose Beck, Young G. Bay, Charlotte Adelaide Blacketer, Brenda Lim Yuen Ling, Patrick Napier Brown, Zachary Bunjo, Debajoti Dam Chowdhury, Rebecca May Clark, Madison Rose Cooling, Alice Rose Louisa Crawford, Peter Anthony DeChico, Jion Doe, Elizabeth Kate Dooley, James Alistair Elix, Quang Yang Yu, Alana Grace Frazzetto, Evan Brian John Garrett, Grace Elizabeth Goodwin, Thomas William Gransbury, Natasha Gray, Emily Alexandra Hatwell, Anya Michaela Henschke, Marunal Devendra Husay, Sonia Guan Wong, Emily Louise Humphreys, Leanne Quing Huynh, Adil Panus Isaac, Rohan Penuel Jacob, Sarah Ann Yench, Anusha Jacqueline James, Bora Zhong, Dione Lorraine Jones, Madeline Alicia Jones, Bridget Vinoma Joseph Xavier, Cutie Kanampura, Sanjana Kasturirangan, Casey Georgia Knight, Melissa Jane Kuiper, Alexander Winho Lai, Esther Huishi Lam, Victoria Murray Langton, Eleanor Jane Last, Neve Imelda Lavender, Natalie Shii Pin Lee, Luke Daniel Lehman, Georgina Victoria Lewis, Lusa Lee, Matthew Yiwei Lin, Richard Zisheng Lin, Catherine Hilary Listener, Melissa Xiaoqin Liu, Yi Jia Lu, Hank John Lee, Jessica Courtney Machado, Fiona Nicole McCowden, Jemima Ruth McKenzie, Georgia Pauline Mead, Brian Homey Meta, Edward Mignoni, Jessica Christine Mitchell, Cara Erin Moffa, Iraq Murshid, Ong Sun Neng, Francis Epiphanasius Nathan, Hu Yuan Nguyen, Olivia May Nguyen, Amalan Nirmala Raja, Si Ling Ong, Ong Toon Yang, Wan Chen On, Roger William Parnese, Tim Russell Phillips, Prabhatha De Silva Polwathe Raduj Badugay, Prushina Leah Prem, Morgan Elizabeth Seabrook Price, Ignatius Patrick Rudd, Liam James Ryan, Salma Bakar Salih, Holly Sanford, Megna Shelke, Isabella Rose Simpson, Ashley Smallwood Simpson, Samantha Jane Smith, Joseph Snyder, So Twan Yao Berin, Marina Spadgic, Morgan Kimberly Swears, Xiao N Tan, Tan Wen Siu Hannah, Z Sin Tan, Karen Chow Ting Ti, Patricia Ming Ho Ting, Joseph Ka Singh Teo, Andre Koing Tran, Lana Tran, Tui Tien Tran, Tu Yuan Trin, Alexander Simbal, Gabriella Ruth Ventner, Sune Victor, Amy Louise Weber, Olivia Grace White, Brendan Yang, Shu Man Yuan. Thank you. Okay. I just was not totally sure if I read out Amelia Nancy Jennifer Shanahan. Good. Okay. To the degree of Master of Minimally Invasive Surgery, Rick Leslie Catterwell and Abdullah Muhammad Rana. To the degree of Master of Philosophy Surgery, for a thesis entitled Mortality and Morbidity in Cardiothoracic Surgery in Australia, Justin Changyan Chan. For a thesis entitled Microbial Genomics of the Upper Airways in Health and Disease, Jacob Jarvis Bardi. And for a thesis entitled An Analysis of the Trends and Variability of Hepatic and Pancreatic Surgery in Australia, Claire Stevens. To the degree of Master of Philosophy, Medical Science, for a thesis entitled Bovine in Vitro Embryo Production, Assessment of Two New Approaches to Improve the Efficiency of Embryo Production, Madeline Batsiokis. To the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, for a thesis entitled Mass Deworming for Soil-Transmitted helminths and Schistosomiasis amongst Pregnant Women, a Systematic Review and Individual Participant Data Meta-Analysis, Dr. Rahana Abdus Salam. For a thesis entitled Acetabular Component Migration Following Revision Total Hip Replacement, Dr. John Matthew Abrahams. For a thesis entitled Immune Modulation of Mammographic Density and Breast Cancer Risk, Dr. Madison Rose McKinnon Archer. For a thesis entitled Defining the Role of Lipids and Metabolic Factors as Risk Factors for Prostate Cancer Incidence and Aggressiveness, Dr. Adil Tahsin Abdelhamid Aref. For a thesis entitled Advanced Preclinical Assessment of Hypernociception, Dr. Azim Arman. for a thesis entitled From the Bottom Up, Chemotherapy-Induced Gut Toxicity, Glial Reactivity and Cognitive Impairment, Dr. Juliana Esma-Bajic. For a thesis entitled The Epidemiology and Patient Perspectives of Glucocorticoid Use in Rheumatoid Arthritis and Other Inflammatory Diseases, Dr. Rachel Joelle Black. For a thesis entitled Corticosteroids and the Sinonasal Microbiome, Dr. Lisa Mary Cherian. For a thesis entitled Endocannabinoid Regulation of Gastric Vagal Afferent Signalling, Dr. Stuart Christie. For a thesis entitled Investigating the Transcriptome Signature of Depression, Employing Co-Expression Network, Candidate Pathways and Machine Learning Approaches, Dr. Liliana Ciobanu. For a thesis entitled Clinical and Genetic Aspects of Prolactin Hypersecretion, Dr. Sunita Maria Cristina de Souza. For a thesis entitled The Molecular Mechanism of Progesterone Receptor in Regulating Gene Expression in the Mouse Granulosa Cells During Ovulation, Dr. Doanne Teo Din. For a thesis entitled Investigation of a Functional Relationship Between Toll-like Receptor 4 and Transient Receptor Potential Cation Channel Subfamily 5 Member 1 in relation to a novel neuroimmune pain model, Dr. Samuel Grieg Evans. For a thesis entitled Prostate Cancer Health and Fitness Online, the Development and Pilot Testing of an Internet Physical Activity Program for Prostate Cancer Survivors, Dr. Amy Margaret Finlay. For a thesis entitled Bacteriophage Therapy for Chronic Rhinosinusitis, Targeting Pseudomonas aeruginosa Biofilms, Dr. Stephanie Ann Fong. For a thesis entitled The Role of Samson-1 in Multiple Myeloma, Dr. Natasha Friend. For a thesis entitled The Impact of Intrauterine Exposures on Neurodevelopmental Outcomes in 8 to 10-year-old Children Within a Disadvantaged Population, Dr. Amy Jade Alice Garrett. For a thesis entitled The Role of Viruses in Chronic Rhinosinusitis, Dr. Rachel Catherine Goggin. For a thesis entitled Progesterone Control of Regulatory T-Cell Abundance, Phenotype and Stability for Pregnancy Success, Dr. Ella Shana Green. For a thesis entitled Identification of Molecular Mechanisms Mediating Twist-1 Regulation of Mesenchymal Stem Cell Proliferation and Differentiation, Dr. Chi Ho Ng. For a thesis entitled Herbal Medicine Use in the Australian Population, Adulteration, Contamination and Adverse Drug Reactions, Dr. Claire Louise Hoban. For a thesis entitled Ex Vivo Bone Culture, a Novel Method for Investigating Mechanical Loading Response and Osteocytes in situ in Trabecular Bone, Dr. Kamarul Arifin Khalid. For a thesis entitled Best Practice Evidence-Based Medicine for the Effective Management of Chronic Obstructive Pulmonary Disease, Dr. Zoe Antonia Kofsaftis. For a thesis entitled Readmissions in Australian Patients with Cardiovascular Disease, Dr. Clementine Labrociano. For a thesis entitled Mesenchymal Stem Cells in an Ovine Model of Kidney Transplantation, Dr. Bron Douglas Lett. For a thesis entitled The Role of Haemoglobin in Healthy Oocyte Development, Dr. Megan Lim. For a thesis entitled Built Environment and Frailty, Understanding the Influence of Neighbourhood on Older People's Health, Dr. Beatrice Arakawa Martins. For a thesis entitled The Ask Teams Approach, a Systematic Way to Investigate Couples with Recurrent Miscarriages, Dr. Catherine Dolores McCormick. For a thesis entitled Detecting In Vitro Signals from the Cumulus Oocyte Complex and Spermatozoan as Diagnostic Tools, an examination of specific fluorophores and functionalised optical fibres, Dr. Hannah Julie McLennan. For a thesis entitled An Optical Fibre Point Temperature Sensor for the Investigation of MDMA-Induced Hypothermia in the rat brain, Dr. Stefan Tyrone Mussolino. For a thesis entitled Osteochondroreticular Stem Cell Therapy for Osteoarthritis, the Right Cells for the Job, Dr. Jai-Chi Ng. For a thesis entitled Novel Topical Antibiofilm Agents in the Treatment of Recalcitrant Chronic Rhinosynovitis, Dr. Mian Lee Uwe. For a thesis entitled The Contribution of Immune Regulatory MicroRNAs in Endometriosis, Dr. Kavita Pania. For a thesis entitled The Host Microbe Interface in Chronic Rhinosinusitis, Dr. Satish Pamarasivan. For a thesis entitled Major Adverse Cardiovascular Events and Mortality in Peripheral Artery Disease, Dr. Saman Lole Pavan. For a thesis entitled The Impact of Omega-3 Fatty Acids on Inflammatory Pathways in the Vessel Wall that Promote Atherosclerosis, Dr. Anthony David Pisanello. For a thesis entitled An E-Learning Approach to the Prevention of Venous Thromboembolism, an Educational and Human Factors Study, Dr. Eamon Patrick Wraith. For a thesis entitled The Role of UP3A and UPF3B in early development and neural differentiation, Dr. Deborah Sadie Sebele. For a thesis entitled Closing Research Gaps for Cerebral Palsy Prevention and Magnesium Sulfate Neuroprotection, Dr. Emily Sarah Shepherd. For a thesis entitled The Differential Effects of Short-Term Physical Exercise, Environmental Enrichment and Their Combination, and Short and Long-Term Environmental Enrichment on Behaviour and Associated Molecular Changes in the Brain of C57BL6 Mice, Dr. Gaurav Singhai. For a thesis entitled Measuring the Health Status of Informal and Family Caregivers, How, What and Why, Dr. Anne Florence Stacey. For a thesis entitled The Role of Nitroxyl in the Development of Neuropathic Pain, Dr. Vasiliki Staikopoulos. For a thesis entitled Nitrositive Stress and the Pathogenesis of Takotsubo Syndrome, Insights from a Novel Female Rat Model, Dr. Sven Yuri Surikal. For a thesis entitled Frailty in Older Adults, Findings from Longitudinal Studies, Dr. Mark Quinlivan Thompson. For a thesis entitled Epigenetic Profiling of Human Placenta Throughout Early Gestation, Dr. Shani Hui Wan. For for a thesis entitled Using New Evidence Synthesis Methods for Decision-Making in Reproductive Medicine, Dr. Ray Wang. For a thesis entitled Improving the Evidence Base for Treatment of Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome, Dr. Rachel Mary Wells. For a thesis entitled The Role of Heterozygous Lysosomal Storage Disorder Alleles as Risk Factors for Dementia, Dr. Lauren Sue White. And for a thesis entitled Endoscopy-Focused Primary, Secondary and Tertiary Prevention of Colorectal Cancer, Dr. Leonardo Zoron Shengui Teo Pugh. Chancellor, this concludes the presentation of graduates from the Adelaide Medical School.
Chancellor, I, Interim Dean of the Adelaide Nursing School, Associate Professor Frank Donnelly, present to you graduates from the Adelaide Nursing School. To the degree of Bachelor of Nursing, Rebecca Skye Abbott, Lida Amadi, Sarah Kate Almaroth, Liana Ann, Bridget Rita Badenoch, Madeline Kate Badenoch, Nilly Jane Bagnall-Smith, Kyra Barberi, Marnie Bennett, Sharon Beatrice Blazek, Stephanie Ellen Blumberg, Chloe Maureen Buchanan, Samantha Jane Cale, Brittany Grace Calvert, Casey Claire Cameron, Isabella Rose Caraputis, Sophie Grace Carlson, Tori Lee Collis, Taylor Erin Conroy, Samantha Angeli Cordero, Abby Jean Daya, Holly Davies, Mia Georgina Davies, Erica Lord de Cruz, Marvin Harron de Rayo, Ashley Nicole Dingle, Moline Dong, Madeline L. Halou, Susanna Jane Elliott, Georgia Rebecca Exton, Chloe Renee Fay, Samson Jade Filer, Meg Eliza Fletcher, May Teresa Fraser, Sophia Susanna Friedman, Amelia Gare, Laura Emily Genkel, Lana Elizabeth Gregory, Natasha Kate Havey, Yichen Hao, Noah Eric Harrison, Sadaya Afsoon Hashimi, PQ He, Piying He, Nicole Claire Heath, Joanna Kate Heidenreich, Lauren Kate Henderson, Gronya Sarah Henry, Jessica Kate Hillier, BJ McKinley Hine, Amber June Hinton, Stephanie Rose Holland, Rachel Lee Hunter, Sarah Inglis. Alana Kate Jackia. Nicola Josephine Jantke. Megan Page Jones. Marin Kim. Saewon Kim. Tia Kopenick. Julia Alice Kral. Natalia Leon Oyes. Hanran Lee. Georgia Bernadette Lindsay. Chenyu Lee. Dishen Lee. Gabriella Rose Loban. Bridget Lovat. Yimei Ma. Demelza Arabelle Mahanes. Madison Rose Martin. Hannah Rose McDonald. Jessica Ann McDonald. Kate Lynn McIntyre. Siobhan Ella Catherine McClatchley. Benjamin Dean John McQueen. Rebecca Mead. Katie Morris. Jessica Milan. Alicia Sandra Mundy. Ella Grace Murison. Bridget Louisa Neal. T Min T Nguyen. Lucy Northcott. Christine Obtinala. April Pake. George Matthew Perusis. Shana Rachel Pearson. Maggie Elizabeth Peterson. Taylor Jessica Petrelli. Taryn Poole. Taylin Marie Pulford. Rahel Ramsey. Alicia Jane Rickard Bennett. Bethany Dawn Riddle. Michaela Beth Roberts. Sheridan Rosalia. Fleur Marie Rowett. Daisy Elizabeth Rylett. Samantha Sampson. Paris Scaife. Luzanne Sheepers. Lily Augustina Serrata. Ka Ching Shum. Elizabeth C.B. Amber Sluggett. Yi Rim Son. Marie Jacqueline Street. Brendan Tang. Candice Thunison. Alice Thompson. Sarah Victoria Thompson. Min Nok Tran. Tia Twelftree. Marie Regine Uwu Mu Bayi. Emma Louise Bocelli. Erin Melissa Welford. Amy Elizabeth Wells. Kwan Yu Wen. Sophia West. Kai David John Whittaker. Samantha Claire Williams. James Isaac Woods. Sky Annabelle Wright. Zhang Ji. Shan Yao. And Yan Zhou. To the Graduate Certificate in Nursing Science, Infection Control Nursing, Jeffrey Wayne Lloyd. Shelby Sitharbalile Moyo. Yin Wang. And Tyler Joel Whittaker. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Yuang He and Rebecca Amy Newton McLean. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Perioperative Nursing, Rachel Marie Deck. Efficia Faciol. Amanda Kate Figelo. Natasha Hyde Forster. Rebecca Jane Hirschhausen. And Catherine Jane Morgan. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Orthopaedic Nursing, Victoria Monique Cole. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Oncology Nursing, Anita Gay Adamu. Suzanne Zed. Tia Louise Vaughan. And Atsuko Yoshio. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Intensive Care Nursing, Jane Esther Borlas. Keisha Louise Bullen. Amanda Marie Dix. Melinda Jane Ingram. Edwina Josephine Jackson. Jessica Rose Mayald. Jessica Lee Seeger. Michaela Margaret Smith. Eloise Nicole Tilley. Katie Cassandra Tonkin-Wright. Nathaniel Rael Velasquez. Susanna Withers. And Maggie Joel. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Emergency Nursing, Laura Ray Balalis. Paige Francis Bevitt. Bo Wayne Brown. Maria Cherrington. Kimberly Nicole Colmer. Mia Carly Darling. Maria Anna Louisa de Gaia. Elise May Donovan. Ella Margaret Fleming. Guy Stuart Forgan. Alison Eve Gore. Christy Lauren Gosnick. Andrea Hellmans. Emily Jane Hooper. Carla Michelle May. Heather Jane McAllister. Kiralee Jane Mumford. Tick Nguyen. Naomi Rachel Niebling. Leah Kurulova Perumal. Maria Purdon. Alicia Ruth Rawson. Nilda Remolosa. Samitha Retseknanghami Sumangala. Hayden Peter Eric Reed. Daniel Peter Ann Stewart. Rizalina Tanalon. Trin Tan Tran. Crystal Landilia Tudu. And Rua Yang. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Cardiac Nursing, Chini Shilapan. Shakira Jade Cullen. Natasha Eakins. Riko Hasegawa, Jessica Renee Lucas, Nicole Frances Manfield, Helen McDowell, Kia Marie Musso, and Michelle Mary P. Ferenczi. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Anaesthetic and Recovery Nursing, Adele Josephine Andre. To the Graduate Diploma in Nursing Science, Acute Care Nursing, Rebecca Emily Adams, Merin Babu, Abby Ella Broderick, Tanya Buckland, Kelly Jane Cheers, Isabella Coriani, Christina Crompton, Yuan C, Jade Carly Decker, Alicia Rose Flower, Caitlin Nicole Langley, Alison Malundu Mabawi, Margaret Jane Moyne, Frances O'Leary, and Annabelle Margot Thomas. To the degree of Master of Nursing Science, Perioperative Nursing, Jessamole Matthew and Julie Ann Rogers. To the degree of Master of Nursing Science, Oncology Nursing, Samia George. To the degree of Master of Nursing Science, Intensive Care Nursing, Joanne McIntyre. To the degree of Master of Nursing Science, Acute Care Nursing, Yolanda Hodgins and Lee Yong Hui. To the degree of Master of Nursing Science, Siti Azreen Binti Aziz and Rebecca Cleveland. To the degree of Master of Clinical Nursing, Sandeep Basnet, Karina Marie Christian, Sigourney Francis Fagan Jeffries, Stanley Fernandez, Sophie Louise Harris, Alexandra May Hawthorne, Olivia Marie Jansen, Annalise Nicole Layton, Rebecca Emily Mason, Jennifer Rose McCallum, Laura Ellen McGavsk, Michelle Nguyen, T. Nok Hien Nguyen, Ashley Sky Norton, Gerald Onabuchi Abasi, Lok Min Pham, Sandra Alexandra Popovich, Madeline May Smith, Tali Blade Stevenson, and Sebastian Arthur Teagle. To the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, for a thesis entitled The Influence of Workplace Culture on the Continuing Professional Development of Emergency Medical Services Providers in Saudi Arabia, an ethnographic study, Dr. Yusuf Muhammad J. Al-Ashrani. And for a thesis entitled Adolescents Resisting the Drinking Culture, Understanding Abstinence and Low-Risk Alcohol Consumption in Adolescents, Dr. Suzanne Kathleen Sharrod. Chancellor, this now concludes the presentation of graduates from the Adelaide Nursing School. I now present to you graduates from the School of Psychology. To the degree of Bachelor of Psychological Science, Farzana Ahmadi, Yvette Pia Aldis, Chelsea Grace Alexander. Nanette Allen. Sir Yi Ang. Molly Jane Arndt. Rosaria Josefa Arjulia. Emily Victoria Atkinson. Moses Alfred Benez. Colleen Rachel Barrow. Bianca Christina Bartoszczyk. Noah Marcello Bevan Parella. Emma Biffin. Lily Eliza Patterson Biggs. Yasmina Isabella Bogius. Jessie Ella Bosisto. Alison Burke. Edward Bridgen. Connor James Brown. Lisa Brown. Taylor Page Burns. Gabrielle Lee Burt. Rachel Anna Grace Butler Wills. Zoe Eloise Caldwell. James Kelly. Catherine Caruso. Joseph Lawrence Chapman. David Tito Chikwuba. Shelby Lee Clayton. Jane Lily Cope. Danielle Rose Coral. Maria Piedad Cortez Aguirre. Anne-Marie Rose Cramond. Angus Dado. Talia Domenico D'Amato. Jessica Dang. Emily Jane Derbyshire. Dulshara Sherame De Silva. Jack Richard Deans. Samuel Braden Giottelabelli. Stephen Dockus. Ryan James Doyle. Alexandra Francis Drew. Nicholas Peter Dunn. Elizabeth Dorothea Easy. Olivia Grace Edmonds. Shard Christopher Ellis Young. Benjamin Paul Elul. Emily Lee Jo Lin. Jamie Lee Francis. Chloe Georgikopoulos. Ella Gamey Madavi. Gemma Michelle Golly. David John Green. Sarah Louise Christie. Kiara Hadland. Marzia Hadari. Georgia Frances Hamilton. Tegan Kerry Joy Harding. Erin Bernadette Heffernan. Danae Martin Henderson. Brad Hennigs. Cornelia Herbert. Matthew Keaton Hill. Jeffrey Juncheng Ho. Katerina Jade Holmes. Amy Hornsby. Marina Imink. Joel Nyi Ki Keat. Bianca Ruby Johnson. Say Leng Capsis. Gur Pooja Kaur. Manpreet Kaur. Nikki Irini Kavouris. Ashley Christine Kennelly. Ellen Ava King. Alexander William Kirsch. Yuka Kong. Samuel James Courtsidis. Mikhail Lumitz. Hannah Kayla Lilu. Jin Ying Lim. Victoria Lloyd Jones. Zihan Ma. Anna Madison. Antonetta Stella Mamone. Kristen Drukika Mance. Yasmin Marshall Tonkin. William David McCall. Delia Margaret Ann McCann. Danica Lee McDonald. Nicole Ann McKenna. Imogen Jessup McMahon. Isabella Cornell Mayer. Manisha Michael. Brad Anthony Raymond Mills. Chelsea Jane Milton. Harura Molas. Ashley Morrison. Shane John Cecil Mrak. Nisa Jane Mulholland. Quinn New Nguyen. Cassandra Shay Nicholas. Rebecca Obeng. Tanae Katarina Ormsby. John Stephen Pardo. Cindy Pasquini. Kim Chi T. Pham. Christina Mary Phillipson. Elise Marie Pryor. Nadia Kasimi. Michaela Bree Reed. Carola Del Pilar Ray Jaramillo. Jack Connor Riches. Belay Fletcher Roberts. Caitlin Claire Roberts. Hannah Louise Roberts. Jordana Rosick Chavotsky. Manuel Salazar. Renee Elise Stewart. Scarlett Grace Scott. Nicola Rose Seal. Devisha Selvam. Deksha Sharma. Taja Jen Shere. Monique Chelsea Slobdovian. Joel David Smith. Zani Smith. Caitlin Nerida Ann Somerville. Tamara Stanislavchik. Harley Jade Stanton. Chelsea Renee Sterling. Morgaine Simnowich. Khan Yuen Tang. Tanzin Tanvir. Danielle Grace Tetley. Emily K. Tigerman. Sherlyn Z. Q. Ting. Matilda Hazel Lagic Schimpf. Bhargavi Vikrant Aravkar. Jade Michelle Westmoreland. Caitlin Paul Joy Westfall. Suday Yuma Walgamburio. To the honours degree of Bachelor of Psychological Science, Erina Mackenzie Barker. Jessica K. Bateman. Ashley Elizabeth Beecroft. Ho Duan Trung Bu. Sophie Claire Callan. Jordana Gina Callisto. Chloe Chenoweth. Eden Sky Clothier, Erin Collins, Camille Marie Delgado, Siri Srunasi Damathari, Anastasia Ellen Unforborden Falkenberg, Isabella Catherine Ferrari, Hayden Peter Frankhausen, Carla Eugenia Gaskin Charles, Sonara Dasuni Ganawana, Phoebe Rose Hender, Carlos Miguel Ibivacioso, Anastasia Iskova, J. Marie Jensch, Amy Louise Jarvis, Natasha Jovic, Athena Maria Kakos, Catherine Kenyon, Bartos Andre Walwas Kowalik, Benjamin William Kropf, Rachel Emma Lane, Elizabeth Kate Mannix, Andy Ewan, Stacey Mary Page, Joanna Preston, Tarani Rajaraman, Maritha Rendidling-Heis, Declan Shillabeer, Jessica Stephanie Schultz, Alexandra Erin Tarby, Connie Tran, Helena Grace Winkenweeder, Amelia Kate Winter, and Alicia Chantel Zanandria. To the honoured degree of Bachelor of Psychology, Chelsea Parsons. To the degree of Master of Psychology, Organisational and Human Factors, Celine Say Ling Chong, Amy Claire Duncan, Sarah Louise Howard, Kate Marie Lyle, Holly Charlotte Mason, Carla Angela Morelli, Lisa Ann Palumbo, and Carlo Antonio Tropiano. To the degree of Master of Psychology, Health, Stella Delosso, Jodie Merle Olivia Baxter, and Tegan Simone Starr. To the degree of Master of Psychology, Clinical, Rachel Kate Chesham, Alicia Dowsett, Sarah Ann Fennell, Ellie Grace Cannon, Danica Marie Gregory, Joanna Hancock, Marissa Rebecca Menez, and Miranda Maeve Willett. To the degree of Doctor of Philosophy with Master of Psychology, Organisational and Human Factors, for a thesis entitled The Online Control of Visually Guided Movement Across the Lifespan, Dr. Jessica Lee O'Reilly. To the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Master of Psychology Clinical, for a thesis entitled The Adolescent Distress Eustress Scale, Designing, Evaluating and Utilising a Holistic Measure of Adolescent Stress, Dr. Victoria Mary Branson. For a thesis entitled Exploring Resettlement Stresses and Help Seeking for Mental Health Support with Women from Refugee Backgrounds, Dr. Rose May Burford Rice. For For a thesis entitled Supporting Weight Loss Maintenance, the Role of Planning, Problem Solving and Recommendations for Future Interventions, Dr. Amanda Ellen Dibb Smith. And for a thesis entitled Stem Cell Treatments for Stroke, a Biopsychosocial Perspective, Dr. David John Unsworth. To the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, for a thesis entitled Parenting with a Diagnosis of Borderline Personality Disorder, a Case for Targeted Interventions, Dr. Diana Ruth Barsh. For a thesis entitled Women-Centred Care or Institutional-Centred Care, a Discursive Analytic Study of Childbirth-Related Decisions, Dr. Lindsay Cole. For a thesis entitled Smoking Cessation Among Emerging Adults, Integrating and Expanding on Social Norms as Barriers and Facilitators of Behavioural Change, Dr. Joanne Dono. For a thesis entitled Trust Heals, Commitment Hurts, Disentangling Predictors of Coping with Interpersonal Betrayal, Dr. Josiah Cameron Krieg. And for a thesis entitled What Lies Beyond the Data, How Sampling Assumptions Shape and Are Shaped by Inductive Inference, Dr. Keith James Ransom. Chancellor, this now concludes the presentations of graduates from the School of Psychology and for this event.
Chancellor, every year the University presents University Medals to acknowledge the most outstanding graduates in each faculty who have completed a University of Adelaide bachelor's degree with honours or bachelor's degree of at least 4 years' duration. The University Medals are awarded to them for their consistent, outstanding performance across the whole of their undergraduate studies. I, Professor Jenny Shaw, Interim Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Vice-President Academic of the University of Adelaide, present to you a recipient of the 2019 University Medal from the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences, Vanessa Faith Schiller. Chancellor, University Doctoral Research Medals are awarded to graduates who have completed outstanding research at doctoral level. This award is the premier award for doctoral candidates at the university. I, Professor Jenny Shaw, Interim Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Vice-President Academic of the University of Adelaide, present to you recipients of the 2019 University Doctoral Research Medal for research in the field of paediatrics and reproductive health, Dr. Lei Wong, and for research in the field of psychology, Dr. Keith James Ransom.
I'm very pleased to present to you Elise Marie Pryor, who was presented this morning with the honours degree of Bachelor of Psychological Sciences. Elise will now give the valedictory address on behalf of the cohort of graduates who are presented with their awards today. Elise.
Thank you. It wouldn't be a valedictory address without the thank yous on behalf of the graduating cohort. Thank you to our family and friends who supported us, sacrificed for us, and pushed us further. Thank you to the academic and professional staff of this university, many of whom continuously went above and beyond to assist us. and thank you to my fellow graduates, some of whom are here today, and others of whom are watching online across the world. You have enriched each other's lives in unquantifiable ways. When I was informed that I'd been bestowed the honour of delivering the valedictory address, I turned to my fellow graduates and friends for advice about what to say. The advice I received was simple, and I suspect somewhat sarcastic. Just use the word unprecedented. This, of course, was said in reference to how our collective description of the COVID-19 pandemic has surely put the word unprecedented in hot contention for 2020 Word of the Year. But the advice prompted me to consider how the word unprecedented perfectly encapsulates our collective experiences of achieving tertiary education. The Oxford Dictionary defines unprecedented as never done or known before. Almost by definition, obtaining any level of education is something that is personally unprecedented for us as individuals. The qualification we are celebrating having achieved has afforded us never done and never known before discipline-specific knowledge, skills, and values. Whilst learning the technical jargon and relevant evidence-based approaches has allowed me to speak the language of my discipline and make informed decisions in practical domains, it is not what I value most from completing my degree. Rather, it is the unprecedented exposure to new experiences while pursuing my degree that I hold dear. I invite you to take a moment to cast your mind back to before you commenced your qualification. In doing so, consider not what you knew, but who you were. I distinctly remember sitting in this very hall, bright and early, on Monday, February 22nd, 2016, the first day of my orientation week for the Vice-Chancellor's welcome address. I was a fresh-faced 19-year-old with braces who had moved from my family home on our country property to a tiny apartment in Rundle Mall. Almost everything that I encountered during my first year of university was unprecedented for me. I experienced the quintessential first year of discovering new disciplines, cultures, and philosophies, and as a result, I personally grew at an unprecedented rate. The following years of my degree continued along the same trend, with each year bringing unprecedented experiences and lessons. Whether that was discovering what subfields ignite my passion, how to navigate setbacks, or how to unlock strengths I didn't know I had. I acknowledge that not all of you will have experienced such a transformational journey during your qualification. However, I'm willing to guarantee that in the pursuit of our qualifications, we all experienced our own personally unprecedented moments of pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zones, of achieving feats that we never thought possible, and persisting in the face of adversity. After all, that is the essence of education, and that is what makes it so powerful. Most importantly, our time working tirelessly towards our qualifications allowed us to expand not only what we know, but who we are. Who we are today is a collection of diverse professions, each of us possessing diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. Yet we are united by our desire to help others in our future endeavours, whether that be as a psychological researcher, an emergency department nurse, a public health officer, a specialist surgeon, or any of the countless other careers ahead of us all. Ultimately, we all strive to improve our communities, to lessen the burden of unprecedented global and local events like COVID-19 and bushfires, and to make our colleagues' or clients' lives that little bit easier. As we navigate our paths forward, I hope that we carry with us the full power of our education to make a difference in the world. I hope that we appreciate our unique positions of privilege, reflecting on the fact that many people globally and indeed nationally never get the opportunity to acquire tertiary education. My wish for you all is that you continue to accumulate personally unprecedented moments, lessons, and skills, and to never stop improving what you know and who you are. Learning is, of course, a lifelong process. Thank you.
I'm delighted now to congratulate all our new graduates. Be proud of what you've done, what you've achieved today, and remember those who supported you, both at home, in your friendship group, and here at this wonderful university. As graduates of the University of Adelaide, you are also its alumni and its ambassadors. Over the years since this university was established, its alumni have made enormous contributions to the community, both here and around the world. Today, you join this community of over 147,000 alumni, located in more than 134 countries, all around the globe. We also have 17 global alumni networks, including 8 international networks. Let me now thank our mace bearer and our valedictorian, and all who assisted in the organisation and running of today's event. I now ask all of the graduates to remain seated, and I invited all on the stage party to stand and once again join with me in congratulating the graduates on their achievements. Would the graduates now please stand? And please remain standing for the academic recession. Once the academic recession has left the hall, please remain at your seats until directed to exit by one of our COVID marshals. I now declare this congregation adjourned.